Hi, everyone. Last episode, we talked about the importance of having a holistic and scalable cybersecurity policy in place and ensuring that everyone in the organization is practicing it. Now, one of the common questions asked is, if I already have a cybersecurity system installed, perhaps like a XDR or a zero trust network, do I still need a risk assessment? Welcome to Sterling Spotlight Podcast, where we give a spotlight on cybersecurity and all things tech. Today's episode, we will dive deep on risk assessments. We talked about how important it is to be proactive and preventative in our approach, and our guest today will help us understand that. I'm your host, Peaches Matarang Cesario, Chief Strategist at Sterling Information Technologies. And today I'm really excited because I'm joined by one of our engineers from Cyrus, which is Sterling's vulnerability risk management practice. I'd like to introduce to you Robert, who has more than 20 years of security and risk experience. Hi, Robert. Welcome to the show. How are you?
Hey, Peaches. I'm doing quite well. How are you doing?
I'm doing great. Thank you so much for taking the time out of your busy schedule to join us and inform all of our listeners today on, what is a vulnerability risk management practice and why they need to have one in place.
Oh, it's my pleasure. It's something that I care quite deeply about, and I'd love to explain why it's so important to organizations.
Okay, perfect. So in the last episode, we talked about how we should treat cybersecurity sort of similarly to how we take care of our health. Prevention is better than cure. And therefore, we need to be more proactive in taking care of our cyber health. So let's say I'm a client and I already installed an endpoint detection platform and maybe even a zero trust network to replace my traditional VPN. Can you tell me what vulnerability risk management is and why it is so important for companies to practice it?
Okay, well, if we're using the healthcare as the analogy here, one thing I'd mention is a risk assessment overall. So not just vulnerability risk assessment, but a risk assessment overall is
Mhm.
identifying what are some of the health issues you may have and how do they contribute to the risk of potentially of you having a degenerative disease or of you dying, etc. So what vulnerability risk management is more technically is we identify vulnerabilities within your environment, within our client's environment. We provide the scanning, we provide the reporting in terms of which vulnerabilities do exist. One thing we really do that makes us different than the others out there is we've taken time to understand your business. So going back to the health analogy, we've talked about some of your goals. You want to lose weight, or if you want to run a 5K marathon, we understand what it is you're trying to achieve. And then we relate those vulnerabilities as risks to your overall goals or your operational goals as a business. So in this case, we relate it to financial risk. How much do you stand to lose? If a bad actor or a hacker exploits a vulnerability and takes down a system or breaches the data that's on that system and leaks it to another site.
Wow. Okay, so I can look at you and for those that are not technically inclined, that's why we use the health analogy. You're pretty much my personal trainer. You're telling me all of the things that I need to do for my company and my business to make sure that it remains healthy and it doesn't get taken over by any malicious actors. Now, is this something that cybersecurity there's always been kind of this thing out there that small to medium-sized enterprises have kind of been left out of the whole cybersecurity thing because it's been such a it some people think it's a huge expense, but I think one of the things that Sterling has done really well is that we've chosen to actually service the small to medium-sized enterprises as well as the larger ones too, but really making it accessible to the SMEs and making it affordable. So are these scans something that I can do just once, or is it, like you said, it's like going to the gym, making sure that it's preventative, and how often do I need to do it to make sure that my company's assets remain healthy?
That's an excellent question, and thank you for that, Peaches. Going back to the health analogy, I would say if your goal was to run a 5K marathon and
Mhm.
you gave yourself 6 weeks to do it, you'd want to monitor more frequently to ensure that you're on target with your goal. So, looking at a vulnerability risk management practice, I've seen some organizations do ad hoc scanning.
Mhm.
That only gives you a point in time reference. I've seen some organizations do quarterly scanning. Now, the challenge with quarterly scanning is that new vulnerabilities are uncovered on a daily basis. So you're now using a 3 month gap in terms of any potential new vulnerabilities within your environment that could pose a risk to your operations. So, what I tend to recommend, depending on the organization size, is monthly for organizations where you want to know and you want a regular cadence, but
Mhm.
you may not have the requirement of doing it more frequently than that. And weekly for organizations, whether large or small, if you're in the financial services business, for an example, or the healthcare business.
And is that because, as we've seen and all the stats are showing, financial and healthcare are, some of the most popular businesses that malicious actors tend to attack, as well as government. Is that why we recommend a more frequent scan of the company's assets?
Yeah, and especially that they have more mature technology environments, not necessarily up to date, but
Mm.
they have more of a reliance on technology and a lot of what we call crown jewels or the data that's critical for the business operation that sits on technology. So having a more frequent cadence at least allows you to see if there's any shifts or changes to your risk profile. Another way of looking at it is kind of like pulling your credit report using a tool like Borrowwell, where they
Mhm.
provide you free access to your credit score every week or daily. You could see what shifts are happening to make sure that you're staying in good stead with not only compliance, but just overall best practices for security.
Okay. And when we talk about vulnerability risk, um, I think explain to me or explain to our listeners how risk is different because one of the things when you guys were, developing this, um, you really wanted to make sure that all levels of the organization could get involved in it. So explain to me and to our listeners, why Cyrisk is so forward in this.
Okay. From a scanning standpoint, any third party could conduct your scanning for you, and we do the same thing. We'll conduct the scanning for you. What makes us different is the availability of the insight that we provide. So the financial risk quantification, the threat prediction that we're working on, trend analysis and reporting as well. So the firms that do this well right now, they do the trend analysis as well as the reporting. And the good firms, they actually do it well. I don't knock on the other firms who do this
Mhm.
kind of work. What they don't really do is the threat prediction as well as the financial risk quantification. They don't take the time to understand or at least do a risk assessment or a business impact assessment of the organizations that they're doing these activities for, as well as the threat prediction that we're working on as well. So another thing that makes it special is we are using a proprietary platform to manage all of this data that comes in. So you could do your scanning with whatever tool your organization feels comfortable with. We're able
Mhm.
to ingest that information and then provide you that insight.
Wow. Okay. So that's and is any other company doing what Cyrus can do right now?
Um, the pieces exist out there.
Hmm.
We haven't seen anyone go to market doing what we're doing today.
Well, that makes me really excited. Um, so I think, risk assessments are they've always been out there. But I think that it's something that people um, and companies really need to start looking at. And from the conversations that we're engaged with our even our own clients, it's really customization. So I think that what services, if you can tell us, does Cyrus provide to these companies that would like to engage in a risk assessment?
Um, just to break down the service that we conduct,
Hmm.
we conduct the vulnerability scanning for you. Um, as an organization, Sterling, we'll help you procure the scanner of your choice, deploy it for you, and run those scans for you. Then we take that information and meet with your management team on a cadence that you decide, whether weekly or monthly, and go through the reporting. We would work with your technical teams as well to ensure that they are patching or there's a plan to patch the vulnerabilities that we identify as well.
Okay. So to sum it all up, if let's say I have my EDR, my XDR, that's protecting the inside of my system, and making sure that, the information is not being tampered with, when it comes to me clicking on certain things and preventing, hackers from coming in. And then let's say I have my zero trust network access that allows me to remote insecurely, from wherever I am. But for me, if I were to look at it, Cyrus is kind of like that entity that is outside of my EDR, outside of my zero trust network. And you're really kind of just scanning everything around me, outside my perimeter of what's internal to my company, to make sure that that nothing can stop me from getting sick. Does that sound about right?
It's a bit of both.
Okay.
So when we're talking about our scanning, we're doing from the outside as well as the inside. Now, when we put other controls in place like the XDR, EDR, or zero trust, we're trying to keep people out.
Hmm.
The problem with that alone is time and time again, we've proven as much as we try to keep people out, there will always be a way to find their way in.
Hmm.
So what have we done to protect that worst case scenario of when they find their way in? And this is why you need a service like Cyrus, because we're able to identify the weak points, hopefully before the bad guys do. So we're able to fix them.
Right. Wow. Okay. Well, you know what? That was a ton of information. And this is amazing. I mean, something that like this and a service like this that, call me a little biased, but that is kind of full circle, providing everything of what is typically, you can buy ad hoc, kind of a la carte, is something that Cyrus provides a business. The fact that it's available to not just the larger multinational companies, but also available to the small to medium sized market is amazing. Robert, I want to thank you for taking your time to be with us today. I think that our listeners will agree that we learned so much today. And every time I talk to you, I learn so much all the time. And, that we give them and that they get actionable items too. So, cybersecurity is something that it's a need to be consistent. I think we all agree that we need to be proactive in our practice. And with that, risk assessment is something that is a proactive approach and is essential to help the organization to make sure that it understands where its potential vulnerabilities, are coming from or can come from, as well as it gives the entire organization from the top down a really broad overview of how the systems and the digital assets can be affected for each department and each role. So I want to thank you so much, Robert, and thank you to all of our listeners for joining us in today's episode. And now, as a special promotion, Cyrisk is offering a free risk management assessment for your company. So how do you get this? Well, if you email us at cyberteam@sterlinginfo.com with the subject line Cyrisk Podcast, you can get your free risk assessment. And if you have any feedback about today's episode, or if there's any cybersecurity topic that you would like us to discuss in this podcast, we encourage you to email us. And again, that's cyberteam@sterlinginfo.com. Or you can visit our website at sterlinginfo.com. Until next time, my name is Peaches Matarang Cesario. Robert, thank you so much for coming here, and I hope that you come back. I look forward to our next conversation. But I thank everybody for listening, and make it a great day.